We are shown an ordinary apartment building. Immediately, the protagonist heard the sound of SMS. He was sitting with the phone in his hand and crying a lot, and his heart was broken. The girl wrote to the guy that she wants to break up with him. The name of the protagonist is Chen Yuan. He wrote with very nervous fingers to Tun what happened and why she made such a decision. He thought that he and his roommates decided to play truth or dare. He asked her not to do this to her. His feelings for her are more than serious. He even sent her a smiley face where the guy is holding his hair. He didn't understand what he had done wrong. He didn't think he was good enough, but he had already planned out their future together. They would have a wonderful family, 2 beautiful children, a house and a car. He has been doing his best to bring this to life. The protagonist was typing all this and crying a lot. He suggested that it was all because he couldn't buy her a purse. He assured her that he was saving up and would be able to buy it next month when the scholarship came. A notification immediately appeared that she had blocked it and the last message was not delivered. The protagonist believed that life was a pain. Immediately his friend came to him and realized that he was in a bad mood today. He quickly turned around and apologized for bothering him. The protagonist hit the table hard with his fist and his bowl of noodles fell to the floor. He left the room and his friends noted that he was abandoned again, and this is the 6th time this month. After we are shown a busy street, the girls recognized Chen Yuan and considered him a stickler. He's been chasing Shu Tong for 3 years. Tong asked Chen not to do this because people are looking at them. The protagonist handed her a bag and said that he understood that she was angry, but he bought her favorite fried pork. He asked her not to talk about the breakup anymore. If she doesn't like something about him, she can always tell him and he will change. 2 friends heard all this and the girl said that she heard that Chen worked 4 jobs at once so that he could afford to give her gifts. And there is no result, she left him anyway. The girl replied that she was not angry with him. Her ex-boyfriend wants to get together with her. After much thought, she came to the conclusion that he really needed more. The protagonist screamed a lot because it was Huang Zhengkai and he didn't understand how. Chen said he was a scumbag and asked her if she had forgotten how he had deceived her and she was letting him powder her brains again. Immediately, an expensive Mercedes car drove up from behind. The window came down and it was Huang himself. He told Shu Tong to jump into his car. The girl came up to her and opened the door saying that it was better for them not to meet again, because her boyfriend might not understand correctly. After that, she got into the car and they drove forward, while the protagonist looked at the road. He obviously threw Tong's favorite food in the trash. Chen walked into a local convenience store. He took a bottle of water and started drinking it. He didn't understand why no one appreciated sincerity. He thought he was so worthless that he could only suck up to everyone. Immediately, he squeezed the empty bottle and felt that there was nothing wrong with being courteous. He was very angry and realized that he only needed to do it properly and then he would become not a sycophant, but a Casanova. A system window immediately appeared, which informed that the strongest system of the stickler had identified a suitable candidate for the role of host. The connection was successful. He had personal funds of 230 yuan, but the account of the system stuck 90 quadrillion yuan. The protagonist was shocked by the system and did not understand what it was. He reached forward to the girl's melons and wondered what this system allows you to do. Immediately, the girl shouted so that the pervert looked at what he was doing and watched his hands, and the protagonist was very surprised and confused. It was a blue-eyed blonde who thought that he had been staring at her from the very beginning and added that he was definitely not right in the head. Her name is Zhu Liu. She is 21 years old. Her attractiveness index is 7.9, and her disposition towards Chen is 50. The protagonist was still in shock and did not fully understand what was happening and what kind of data he would see in front of him. The system added that only the location parameter will reach 96 points. It will be possible to make a counterattack and she will become a fan of the owner. 1-2. The protagonist looked at the system window, where it was written about 96 points and thought that it was possible to use the system. The protagonist did not understand whether he needed to spend this money on women. 90 quadrillion. The system agreed. She said that the entire amount is on this card, but only women can use it. When the user of the card becomes a fan of the owner, a tenth of the amount spent will be credited to the owner's personal account and can be used at his request. In addition, the owner can receive other rewards. The protagonist also understood how things are here. He thought that he could use this girl as a test mouse and smiled maliciously. He asked the beautiful lady not to be angry. He assured her that whatever she wanted today, everything was at his expense. The system reported that the implementation of the stickler was successfully completed. Task: counterattack Zhu Liu reward for execution, 10% of system funds, 5 gain points. The girl thought that he was pretending to be rich and just wanted to show off in front of her. She didn't believe he could do anything at all. People discussed and said that it was Sui Leal, the first beauty of the Faculty of Art. The guy had heard that she was quite adept at spending other people's money. Somehow, she only had a couple of words and the man spent 30,000 yuan on her, and they thought that the protagonist had big problems. Chen asked her not to rush into words, because until you try, you won't know. The girl held out her phone and said that today was such a good day, and why not treat all the classmates with sweets in the buffet. She asked if he would help with the financial part of the issue. The girl noted that he was dressed like a beggar but was trying to show off in front of the beauty. She wanted to show him what a real shame is. Immediately he paid and 50,000 yuan was credited to her account, and the girl was surprised and embarrassed. Everyone was surprised that he just took and transferred 50,000 yuan as if it didn't cost anything. This guy looks as unremarkable as possible. And now it turns out that he is actually a major. The protagonist noted that 50,000 is not so much. Then he showed his phone and smiled and said that it was enough to get her WeChat. The girl assumed that she was mistaken and this guy is really a major. She smiled and decided to act. Sui approached him and asked him not to worry. She decided to add WeChat, and the protagonist was surprised. Immediately she approached him and added that from the beginning he would go to the same place with her. And the protagonist became even more confused and even began to sweat. She wanted to see how long he would last. After that, she went out onto a busy street where it was already night. To begin with, she would like to clarify something. She is not a mercantile girl at all. She just wants to understand how sincere and serious he is towards her, and she took him to the store with the most expensive clothes. The protagonist thought about how the more she spent, the more he would get back. Chen said there was no problem with that, and she could choose whatever she liked. Tame your appetite, my dears, and you will conquer human nature. Just a wonderful sample for testing the system. The protagonist was looking at the handbags and heard Tong telling Xingyunkai whether this handbag suits her. He turned back and saw Shu Tong with her new boyfriend. The girl immediately drew attention to the protagonist. 1-3. The protagonist was very surprised and even a little panicked. Sui realized that this was his ex-girlfriend and that she was at the wrong time. The protagonist replied that it was just the opposite and smiled at her. Sui approached the saleswoman and asked if they had a handbag from the spring show. The girl replied that she was the last one left. However, another client is now trying it on and pointed to the ton. She also thought that Chen would not leave her alone, and she wanted to show him that a loser like Chen was not Junkai's rival. Tong said that her birthday was coming soon and turned to Huan. The blonde looked up from the phone and was surprised because she had recently celebrated it. The girl replied that it was a birthday according to the lunar calendar, but it should be soon according to the solar calendar. The blonde man looked at her in silence. He smiled and told her to listen to him carefully. She knows that he doesn't like mercantile girls. He asked her if she was with him not only for money. The girl was very scared and tensed up. After that, Sui took the purse and snatched it from Tong. She asked for forgiveness and added that if they did not buy, then she would take it for herself. The system reported that the location of Sui Leal to the protagonist increased by 20%. The protagonist at the same time paid for his purse with his card. Its location has also increased by 20%. It was growing by leaps and bounds. The protagonist realized that this is the true power of money. Some kind of bag, and he already has 60 points in his pocket. At this rate, a couple more bags and they will achieve the desired result. The protagonist thought that the cashback could have been bigger, of course. The shop workers were talking among themselves. The girl told Xiao Lai that she didn't understand. Why are people who look like they were born with a golden spoon in their mouth so stingy towards their women? And those who look unremarkable are ready to spend such sums. The store manager told them many times that they should not be biased against guests. Appearances are deceptive. Tun heard all this and was very angry. Sui said that she and the bag and the guy were taken by a better owner. She looked at the protagonist, who was carefully examining the bags. She believed that such a big fish should not be missed. Sui hugged his hand and thanked him and called him dear. She thought he was very generous. At this time, Sui saw all this and began to cry. The girl hit Chen Yuan and said that it was too much, which surprised him. The protagonist smiled and did not understand, because this is not too much. He laughed and said they were just getting started. Immediately, Huang ran after Tong, and the system informed him that a second object had been found. Lin Shu Tong, her attractiveness rating, 7.5 points, and the disposition to the host, -10. As soon as the location parameter reaches 96 points, it will be possible to make a counterattack and she will become a fan of the owner. Reward for performing this maneuver, 10% of the system bank, 20 gain points. She approached him and asked if he was amused. She was not averse to playing along and asked where they were going next. The protagonist was surprised by her words. After the girl showed that she wanted this costume. Then another bag, why would she need two? The protagonist said that in addition to these two, everything else also needs to be wrapped and will pay with a card. The saleswoman was in shock, and Sui looked at him with loving eyes. The girl agreed with him. They will pack and deliver the selected items to the address specified by him. Sui thought that men with money were so attractive, and she had a lot of bags with things in her hands. The location of Sui Leal increased by 5%. After they went to buy expensive perfumes and her disposition increased again by 5%. Then they bought her an expensive lipstick and makeup bag and increased by 5% again. They bought a lot of clothes and the disposition continued to grow by leaps and bounds. Sui felt that this was enough. If they continued, she was afraid that all this would not fit into her apartment. He was surprised at her words and replied that it was not a problem, because he would buy her an apartment. The girl felt that it was somehow not good, because he had already spent so much money, and this was only their first meeting, but she just wanted to joke. Its location is again at 5%. The protagonist realized that he had scared her. Indeed, if he had been told that they would buy him a house worth several million, he would also have experienced some inconvenience. The protagonist said that she was in the 3rd year of the Art Institute, 21 years old, 165 centimeters, 49 kilograms. Favorite color is black. Favorite cuisine is Korean. Zodiac sign is Capricorn. Shoe size 37. Loves horror movies, but most of all is afraid to walk down the street alone at night. She was shocked by his words. The protagonist asked her if he didn't like all this, would he behave so recklessly? He asked the saleswoman if they had a member's savings card. He wanted to replenish it by 500,000. The next time this girl comes here, she needs to recommend the best to her. The girl agreed with him and asked him to wait a little. The protagonist said that this card was for her to smooth out the impression after an unsuccessful joke about buying an apartment, which scared her so much. The girl was just in shock and blushed deeply. He approached her and added that if she was uncomfortable, she could offer him something interesting in return. The girl pushed him away and thought he was a pervert. Her disposition has increased by 30% again. The saleswomen were shocked, because this guy is so plain in appearance, but so rich. Not just rich, but also very generous. He cares so much about his woman. The protagonist thought that if he had money, no matter who he was and how he behaved, he would get away with everything. The girl noted that he bought her a lot of gifts and asked why he should not think about himself. The protagonist jokingly spread his hands and said that he had no money. The girl turned around and said that now it was her turn to give him a gift. She took his hand and pulled him along. She was thinking that if she wants to catch this big fish for a long time, then she should invest in it. After that, they show us a big night city. The protagonist and Sui were choosing men's t-shirts and he was a little surprised. Then they went to the barber shop to give him a nice haircut. Then he came out and showed himself to the girl and literally sparkled all over. Its location has increased by 5%. The girl was surprised that he was so attractive. It was worth just dressing up a little. The girls in the background also thought he was very handsome. Her disposition continued to grow by leaps and bounds. 1-5. He approached her and asked her how she was. He thought it was a little strange. Chen is already an adult, but this is the first time he has encountered something like this. Fortunately, he didn't have to spend money on it. The girl approached him and replied that it was nothing strange. She thinks they look good together now. Then the girl let go of his hands. She started to leave and noted that she was so happy today. She thanked Chen. For a moment she even thought she was in love and blew him a kiss. She wanted to see him again. In total, Sui Leal's disposition was already 68%. The protagonist then returned to his home. He opened the door to the room and his friends were very surprised with his new image. The guy asked what he had been doing all day and what he was wearing. The protagonist picked up the phone and replied that he was on a date with Zhu Leal. The guy was surprised with his words, because he had not decided anything with Lin Shutong, but he had already taken up Zhu Leal. The guy with glasses replied that Zhu Leal was the first beauty of the Faculty of Arts. He was wondering what would happen to him if he was abandoned again. A friend hugged the protagonist and told him to listen to the brothers and added that he could not afford this girl. The protagonist thanked them for their advice. The protagonist wrote a message to Shutong and said that if he really hated her so much, then she wanted to remove each other from friends. Chen was happy because fortunately, these manipulations no longer work for him. If they delete each other, then he won't be able to earn extra money from her. He wrote that how could she say that, because she knows that she is special to him. The girl replied that she was with Juan not because she needed his money, but because her mother was sick. We need 50,000 yuan for treatment. Immediately, the protagonist sent her 50,000 via WeChat. She was just in shock and screamed all over the room. She barely mentioned it and he immediately transferred the money. Her friend asked who this rich man was who was throwing away such money, and she assumed that it was Huang Junkai. Shu Tong replied that to hell with this Huang, he couldn't even buy her a simple bag. This is Chen Yuan and he transferred the money to her. A friend was surprised because she just broke up with him today. She was surprised that this poor bastard had such money. Tun realized that this was her mistake and she decided to ask directly. Its location has increased by 5%. The girl asked what all this meant, where he got so much money from, and she was wondering what his relationship with Zhu Liel was and whether he bought her a bag. The girl added, was he really born with a golden spoon in his mouth after all? She wanted roast pork and sent him a smiley face. She asked if he didn't love her anymore. She wrote all this with a stony face. She was wondering why he wasn't answering and thought he had fallen asleep. The protagonist also set the status do not disturb. He thought Lin Shutong was too talkative. Zhu Liel is not so hasty in this regard. He wondered where else he could spend a lot of money on a woman. Immediately he realized that he could try with live broadcasts, and clicked on the icon in his phone. He went to the broadcast. The girl's name is Xiao Mir and she said that she will be online for just an hour, and the guys should hurry up with gifts. The protagonist went under the nickname Lone Wolf. He texted her in the chat that he wanted to be her friend. They asked him, it's not funny to him, some kind of new name with such requests. Philin added that it would cost a pretty penny, millions is far from the limit. Kakarot said that this idiot wouldn't throw 100,000. Immediately, everyone started laughing at the protagonist. Chen understood that millions is much more than the price for handbags. He realized that he was in the right place. He started sending her gifts. Immediately, Xiao Mir began thanking him for the rocket and showed him a heart. Immediately she was very surprised and was literally shocked. He started sending them an incredibly huge number of pieces, from which she blushed and did not know what to do. 1-6. All the guys shocked that the protagonist sent 100 cancer, because it's 1 million yuan. Immediately, the guy with the nickname Airplane realized that the guy had spent a lot of money. The mind realized that they had a rich man here and apologized. The charmer wrote to Sugar Daddy to punish her. Kakarot wrote that she was also nothing so he could pay her. The protagonist considered all of them snobs. He was sitting on his bed and staring at the phone, wanted to please them a little more. He pressed the rocket again and decided to send them as many as 900 pieces. A notification appeared on the stream that the lone wolf pleased with a rocket and far from one. The whole phone was in rockets that were flying forward. After that, they show us a large building and someone shouted that something incredible had happened. He went into his boss's office and said that some unknown rich man had just unbuckled 10 million yuan to Mir. He choked on the water and spat it out. The man asked, and this is definitely not some kind of fraudster. It was a lot of money and he assumed that someone was laundering money. After that, they show us the streamer's rest room. There were beautiful girls who wanted to write to a lone wolf as soon as possible. They had his ID, and they all wanted to get money from him. A bunch of girls started writing to him and saying that just a couple of rockets would cover their monthly salary. Xiao Mir was shocked. She didn't know if it was a dream and if she really had been paid 10 million. She pinched herself and it hurt. Immediately, someone started whispering to her. It was a guy with a sign on the bark. It was written that the boss said that you need to take a lone wolf into circulation and he gives an additional 10%. The girl smiled viciously, because she didn't even need to talk, as if she herself would have given such a large fish to others. The girl immediately began to thank the lone wolf. She wanted him to send her a private message and she would thank him properly. Xiao Mir wrote to him herself and asked if he was here. She said that her broadcast will last another 5 minutes. She asked him to reply to her message. The protagonist was already asleep and had all sorts of cool dreams. After that, the next day came and they show us the protagonist's dorm again. In the news in the first place was the news that the mysterious rich man spent 10 million in the shark. His identity is still a mystery. Immediately the guys shouted that someone had spent 10 million. The bespectacled man said that it was too much. In his city for such money it would be possible to buy several apartments. He wanted someone to give him money as well. The protagonist was thinking about it. Another guy said that he hopes that today he will have a dream in which he will be the richest person. The protagonist was brushing his teeth and was surprised that he spent so much money yesterday, and the system was not legal with Xiao Mir. He looked at the bound representatives of the fair sex. There were only Zhu Liel and Lin Shutong. The protagonist thought that this really requires a personal meeting. That is, all his money was wasted. He clicked on the shark icon. A lot of different girls wrote to him and everyone wanted his attention and communication. He was surprised how many messages were written to him. The guys left and waited for miracles with impatience. The bespectacled man said that he needed to go soon, because all the good places would be sorted out. The protagonist asked them what they were doing and why they didn't call him. The guy replied that they were going to class. Today was an open lesson and they wanted to enjoy the beauty of Zhao Yuki. The bespectacled man noted that he used to run ahead of them, and after the lesson he did not want to leave. Another guy asked him if Chen was coming or not. The protagonist remembered Zhao Yuki, whom he liked. 1:7. After that, they show us the university where the protagonist studies. We are shown Zhao Yuki herself. She is the chairman of the student union of Hunan University, and the dream of all guys. Everyone was already sitting at their desks and waiting for the lesson to begin. She played the piano. The chairman of the ballet troupe has a second class in fencing. Incredible appearance and a lot of talents make her an elusive dream of all guys. The protagonist was thinking that this beauty of Hunan University has been keeping to herself all this time. And in 3 years of training, no one has managed to conquer this Everest yet. The girls looking at the protagonist were just shocked and literally fell in love with him. They did not know who it was and believed that he had transferred from another group, because they had not seen him before. The protagonist also thought that since she is so impregnable, this is a great opportunity to get a good cash back. And he laughed angrily. Immediately, Tong's friend saw Chen Yuan. She noted that he had changed so much over the past couple of days. She thought he was dressing up to impress her. The girl thought that it was so, but she has Junkai. She was worried that they might quarrel because of her. Its location is 30%. She and her friend were almost already in love with him. The protagonist noted that it cost him a little to dress up and her attitude towards him improved. He considered her a really shallow woman, but he didn't care. He wondered how he could add Zhao Yuki to the system. Immediately, someone started shouting for someone to show them how he would conquer the beautiful Zhao Yuki. The protagonist drew attention to this. The guy told everyone to look carefully. He assured that she would now fall in love with him completely and irrevocably. The guy approached her and asked her for WeChat. The protagonist began to get angry, because the one he noticed was being taken away right in front of his eyes. Immediately another guy asked him what he was doing and began to get angry. The guy didn't care and he approached Zhao and said that he would like to get to know each other a little and start dating. But before he could finish, he was grabbed by the collar and he was surprised. He put it on the desk and pointed the pen, asked what this brat was up to. He ordered not to touch Zhao Yuki. It turned out that it was not a guy, but a girl. Her name is Xiaofai and she is Zhao's roommate. The guy said it was all just a misunderstanding. He wanted to join the student union. Zhao Yuki is the chairman. He just wanted to ask for advice and assured that she just misunderstood. The girl replied that she did not think so and that this was some kind of excuse to pick up a girl, and ordered him to get out of here and hit the one that he started screaming and howling. She thought it was even funny, as if a toad was showing off in front of a swan. He made her very angry, and Zhao asked her to calm down. Immediately, the protagonist approached the girls and told Zhao Yuki that he would like to add her to WeChat. Xiaofai began to get angry that another one had appeared and that there was no end to them. Zhao, surprised, turned to him. Xiaofai didn't understand what kind of hype it was today. The protagonist asked her if he could and handed him the phone. The girl thought that this guy is so brave. He is not afraid to lose face in front of the whole group. She didn't understand where he got such self-confidence from. Xiaofai noted that the protagonist is at least prettier. She asked if he also wanted to join the student union. The protagonist spread his arms and replied that he was not very interested in all these student movements. Xiaofai asked what Zhao Yuki's WeChat was for. The protagonist replied, "Isn't it obvious?" He wanted to hit on her and stretched out his hand forward. 1:8. Zhao Yuki was greatly surprised and even blushed at his words. Immediately, the whole group began to be indignant and did not believe that he was serious and believed that he was crazy. They wanted to see where he would have his confidence when he would cry after being dumped. The girl smiled at him. Zhao decided to try dating him and took out her phone. Shu Tong's friend laughed and asked if he was not her personal dog and if there were any problems. Tun began to get angry. The protagonist understood that the desire for beauty is not alien to anyone, so why hide it? All the guys started crying and getting angry because Chen managed to get such a girl. One even noted that his goddess would get to this pig. The protagonist did not understand who said that simplicity is bad. Sometimes the most obvious is also the most effective. Who doesn't like being paid attention to? Immediately, the system reported that a new target had been found. Currently, the location of Zhao Yuki is 0. She added Chen and he was glad that everything worked. After that, the protagonist and his friends left the university, and the guys noted that the protagonist is on a roll today. Even managed to get Zhao Yuki's WeChat. Another guy mentioned that he had changed quite a lot lately. The guy added that if everything works out with Zhao Yuki, then he should ask her to introduce them to her pretty girlfriends. The protagonist also noted that he had not done anything yet. She is the most beautiful girl of the university and should not carry nonsense. Immediately, someone shouted to the protagonist that he was a smug bastard. It was that guy with his friends. He noted that Chen is smart. Chen asked if he wanted to embarrass himself even more. He could learn from this. Immediately his friends realized that he wanted to start a fight and that he was too self-confident and could start a war. Immediately he began to get very angry and wanted to kill him. He assured him that he had assured him that he remembered him. His friends held him with the last of their strength because he had to forget what they were told at the station. If they fight again, they will be fined again. The protagonist replied and felt that he was very sorry for him. Immediately he noticed. It was Zhu Liu. She noted that he was very slow and that she had been waiting for him for a long time. She looked incredible. Immediately, all the guys got angry when they saw Zhu Liu, the first beauty of the Faculty of Arts, 6th in the ranking of beauties of the whole university, nicknamed the thunderstorm of heterosexuals. The protagonist realized that he was a fool to keep such a beauty waiting. If she would let him, he would treat her to dinner as an apology. She replied that it was not worth it. She was wondering how she looked and whether he liked her, because he bought her all these things. The protagonist replied that everything looks great on her, and this bag looks just amazing. All this was heard by Tun, who was angry. The two of them went ahead and Zhu noted that people also like it and the protagonist agreed with her. The guy who wanted to fight with the protagonist started crying, because he doesn't understand what's wrong with him. Immediately someone repeated the same thing. The guy turned around because he thought that someone had read his thoughts. It was Xu Tong. She noted that she had been before her and did not understand what was so and so about her. 1:09. Afterward, the girl told Chen that she had a gift for him. She stayed up late to sketch a drawing. She added that if he threw it away, she would not forgive him. The protagonist was shocked because this is the first gift from a girl in his entire life. The girl asked lovingly if he liked it. The protagonist looked at it. After that, he lowered his head and his face seemed sullen. He understood that all this was a bait to get caught in her spider nets. As soon as he spent a couple of thousand on her, she thought out in detail how to catch him. Unfortunately for her, he is not the same as before and smiled maliciously. The girl noted that he did not look particularly happy and thought that he did not like the gift. The protagonist rudely asked her why he needed it. The girl was embarrassed and replied that she painted him late at night if he didn't like it. Immediately, the protagonist grabbed the drawing. After that, he got close to her and said, "What if this is not so? How will she respond to him for all the gifts that he gave her?" The girl was embarrassed. She called him a scoundrel and noted that he scared her and asked her to give the drawing. The protagonist laughed and said that he would not give it up and would take it away and keep it as a family heirloom. Then he took her hand and turned to her. He replied that of course he liked her more than her gift. The girl blushed deeply. She looked at him with loving eyes. The girl realized that he was not a bad flirt. Its location has increased by 5%. The protagonist smiled maliciously. He thought that she wanted to tease him and thought that he needed her only so that he would have more money. Immediately, someone shouted Zhu Liu's name and they show us their hand. The protagonist noticed this and got ready. A certain guy broke their pair and Sui and Chen were surprised. The bespectacled man asked if she had not agreed with her best friend to make nails and he was wondering who this guy was. 1:10. The guy thought that she was making nails with him, and now she's making out in front of everyone. He thought he had money and that's why she lets herself be hugged. He's been chasing her for so long and she's never even let him take her hand. The protagonist realized that, apparently, this boy is an ardent fan of Zhu Liu. This behavior is very familiar to him. The girl viciously asked who he was at all. Whether she has a boyfriend or not, he doesn't care. Immediately, the protagonist decided to approach that guy. The protagonist introduced himself to him and asked what his name was and how long he had been so humiliated. The girl didn't understand what was going on here at all. The guy replied that his name was Wang Yu. He was also from the Faculty of Arts. He had been trying to take care of Zhu Liu for 6 months. The protagonist exhaled and considered him a lost child. The protagonist raised his bangs and said that he reminded him of someone. He once ran after a girl for 3 years. He worked 4 jobs and 8 sunsets and steamed buns. And in the end, she still chose to get into someone else's expensive car. Wang felt that this was too much. The protagonist approached him and put his hand on his shoulder and said that those who throw them motivate them to become better. A real man will definitely have a decent woman. He told him to go back to the dorm and forget about Zhu. When he succeeds, she will definitely see it and regret her choice. Van started crying and saying that he had calmed him down so much. He will definitely become stronger and earn a lot of money. Zhu did not understand at all what was going on here and whether Wang Yu was really crying. After that, the girl turned to Chen. She assured that he was just her friend and never thought that he would interfere. The protagonist turned around and said he didn't care about her past, but he thinks that she does not respect either herself or him, and right in front of her face tore up the drawing. That card he gave me yesterday. He can continue to use it, but until she understands her surroundings and learns to communicate with people, it's better for them not to see each other, and he went ahead and scattered the pieces of the drawing. The protagonist was thinking, and how is he going to put up with such an attitude towards himself, and what will she do? He'll be looking forward to it. Damn, show the tears that fell on the floor. It was the first time someone had been so condescending to her. She recalled all the scenes with Chen that they had managed to go through together. The girl started crying because of this. She started wiping away her tears and realized that he really liked her, but she screwed up so much and howled. Zhu Liu's disposition increased by 5%. The protagonist walked down the street and went down the stairs. The protagonist, looking at the system window, realized that the worse he treats a woman, the more she loves him. He has grown as a person. We've finished with Zhu Liu. It's time to get down to Zhao Yuki. He picked up the phone and realized that Zhao Yuki was watching a live broadcast and didn't know if she was also a streamer or not. 1:11. He went to the broadcast and the girl greeted everyone and introduced herself. Her specialty is music and dance. She is still only learning and interacting with them on this platform, so she asked that subscribers take care of her. The protagonist thought it was very cute. He thought she only looked so cold, but was actually quite open. He looked at the number of viewers and decided that this was not enough, and that it would not go that way. Xiaomir immediately wrote to him, who wrote to the protagonist that he was back online and that she was glad to see him and sent emoticons. The protagonist asked who she was. The girl replied that he had just given her a bunch of rockets yesterday, and today he no longer remembers her. Chen laughed and said she was joking. He asked her if she had any free time, because he needed to meet her. The girl thought he was so impatient and replied that she was very busy. The protagonist told her to forget about it. The girl asked him not to be angry and added that today she would dance especially for him. The protagonist was angry, because he understood that she still wanted to breed him for money. He had spent so much money, but still there was not even a system notification of communication with her. It would be better if he gave all this money to Chairman Zhao. Immediately, he received a notification that the presenter he was following was participating in the battle and needed to support her. Zhao Yuki versus the mysterious girl. Xiaofai realized that it was a battle, but hoped that she didn't mind some big shot. The protagonist was looking at Chairman Zhao and he had to look at it all. It was Xiaomir. She said that she accidentally called a new girl to the battle and thought that she had the victory in her pocket. The protagonist also felt that it was quite difficult to predict the winner here. These two are in a battle. Quite an interesting set of circumstances. The battle of Zhao Yuki against Xiaomir began. The blonde thought that she shouldn't even try. Her audience is much better than her. Moreover, she is supported by such an influential person as a lone wolf. The girl saw the messages of her sycophants and even recalled the correspondence with the protagonist. From her experience of catching big fish, he must already be on the hook. Xiao's followers started giving her many different gifts. Immediately the protagonist appeared, who presented the rocket. Xiaomir was glad that a lone wolf appeared and immediately thanked him. She saw that he had not bought the rocket for her and was just shocked. Chen bought a bunch of different missiles from Zhao Yuki, from which Xiaomir was simply shocked. He gave her 1,000 rockets. Zhao and Xiaofai were just in shock and their eyes were burning. The blonde began to get angry and wondered why they didn't give her rockets. Immediately she began to whisper and the guy held a sign with the inscription that the boss demands an explanation from her. 1:12. Immediately, the blonde apologized to everyone. She explained that she had things to do and she needed to run. Her subscribers remembered that this was the same lone wolf who had spent 10 million yesterday. She turned off the broadcast and the app reported that the steamer was resting. Jimmy I started laughing at her and saying it was a shame. Little Archie noted that the lone wolf is really incredible. Made her shut up. Liu Daneng added what she said, that he was her patron, and he immediately started another one. The protagonist thought that he could give gifts to her and others and asked if she had decided to play with him. He was looking at his phone and thinking. He wanted Chairman Zhao He to spend a lot of money and she should not disappoint him. Immediately, the sharks came running to the boss again and said that a terrible thing had happened. This rich lone wolf gave a lot of money again. The boss understood what was going on and was very surprised. He didn't know. This guy was definitely not some oil tycoon. After that, they show us the streamer's restroom again. The girls were discussing the protagonist. The girl with blue hair said that the richest lone wolf transferred 10 million to the girl who played the piano. The blonde thought that he was in a musical mood today. The redhead shouted to Xiao to carry her triangle and her. The other one shouted to capture her Sanu too. After that evening came and the streets were a little empty. Xiao told Zhao to watch, because her broadcast today is in the first place in all trends. She has become popular and will be an internet celebrity. Zhao, on the other hand, was just in shock and very embarrassed. She thought about it. To make men happy on the internet, she will not say that this is a particularly attractive prospect. Career is the most important thing for a woman. It should be independent both financially and in all other aspects. Xiao agreed with her and asked her not to teach her anymore. Immediately she asked her to tell honestly if she knew this rich man who showered her with gifts. The girl turned away and replied that he had told her 1,000 times that he had not. She may or may not believe. Her friend asked her not to be angry, because she was just very curious. Zhao understood that he really sent too much and therefore he needed to thank her. Xiao looked at her with surprise. She thought about it, and who just said that he was not amused by such a prospect. Said one thing, did another. Immediately, Zhao screamed and Xiao was scared. She turned around and asked what it was. She turned to a friend and said that she probably knew who it was and showed the phone. She realized that it was Chen Yuan, because he was recorded in her contacts 1-1. The story